It's our last week to talk about brand new 2021 shows, and we've got some big ones, including the Yellowstone prequel 1883 and the new Star Wars series, The Book of Boba Fett. Let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV news and reviews for the week, wrapping things up for 2021. Now, we will be doing a best and worst of TV 2021 in a few days, but this is our last regular TV news and reviews for the year. I know it's a few days into January already, but no matter. We're going to tackle a few shows that premiered in the last week or two of the year, and then also an older show that I've been wanting to check out for a while now called Chaplewaite. But we've got 1883, The Book of Boba Fett with Love, which is over on Amazon Prime, and an import on Netflix called Anxious People. So we're going to talk about all of that, but first, we will get to the news in just a second. Before we do that, though, I want to welcome you into Dan Reviews It. Thank you for finding this video. I don't often say it enough on the TV news and review stuff, but please consider subscribing down below if you are not one of my subscribers already. And check out the Facebook page as well, and the Twitter feed. All of that is below in the description. So let's talk about the news of the week. Look, the biggest TV news, we all know it, Betty White passing away at age 99, just a few weeks shy of her 100th birthday. I was actually on vacation in Florida and basically stopped what I was doing. Luckily, we weren't at one of the parks at the time when I found out. I was just kind of chilling with my nephew, but I was like, excuse me, I gotta go do a video. The great Betty White has died. And at 16 years old, even he knew who Betty White was. So, you can check out my Betty White tribute video, but I've been reading up a few things since I made that video. I basically heard the news about Betty White, made the video immediately. I didn't, look up anything. Everything in that video was just sort of from my own knowledge. But there were things I had not even known about her. I knew she was one of the first female producers ever on her own show. That was in the 50s. Maybe she was the first. But I didn't know that she was, in 1955, crowned the mayor of Hollywood, which is kind of wild. And I had forgotten to mention, a few key things on my video just because, like I said, I was sort of going off top of mind. But I forgot that she won an Emmy for her SNL appearance, which was fan-generated, by the way. Lorne Michaels apparently had asked her several times to host previously, I assume when the Golden Girls was probably on television. And she kept passing, and then there was a huge Facebook campaign to get her to host, and so she finally agreed from that. And it's a legendary episode. They actually re-aired it this weekend. They were going to be in reruns anyway for the holiday, so they re-aired the Betty White episode. And if you have not seen it, it's legendary. I mean, it's so many funny stuff, a lot of, guest appearances as well. But she remains the oldest host ever. I think at the time she was 88 when she hosted the show. So, just a legend. What else can be said about her, really? But yeah, I covered a lot of that stuff in my standalone tribute video, so do check that out if you're into Betty White. I got the People magazine just today with her 100th birthday, interview on it, and she died literally, I think, the day that it was being sent to grocery stores and newsstands and stuff. So not much they could do about it at that point, but I know People is putting out a special Betty White, lifelong tribute issue. You know how they do those special issues that cover just one topic for 100 pages or whatever. So they're doing one of those to be released in a couple weeks. So anyway, love that Betty White. Just truly one of the only humans on this planet that was universally beloved. The only other one I can really think of, I feel like Dick Van Dyke, maybe not quite in that Betty White realm, but he's been around a long time as well. He's in his 90s, still working. He was in that Mary Poppins sequel, and he's definitely up there in that pantheon. But Betty White is truly one of the greats. I mean, starting in TV in the 30s. It's just insane. before anybody even had TV. She was like doing a test video for one of the stations. But anyway, so let's get into the news of the week. Speaking of Lorne Michaels and Saturday Night Live, he may be eyeing up retiring finally. He has been with the show obviously a long, long time. He created the show back in the 70s. 1975 was the first season. He did leave for about 5 years in the early 80s, which is when it went really downhill, and then came back in the mid 80s, and introduced us to people like Dana Carvey, Kevin Nealon, Dennis Miller at that time. But he is looking at maybe retiring in season 50 of the show, which will be the 2024-2025 TV season. So we're still a few years off of that. I know he's been trying to keep people like Kate McKinnon and Cecily Strong on until that 50-year mark. I sort of think that's a mistake. I feel like people do need to, have their time at SNL 7, 8, maybe even 10 years, but then you got to go. I mean, I'd love to have Kristen Wiig still on there, and I'd love to have Jason Sudeikis still on there, but then we don't get maybe Ted Lasso, So I think people do need to sort of churn through there. I guess unless you're Kenan Thompson, he's sort of an institution. But season 50 may be a retirement for Lorne Michaels. The Squid Game creator in talks with Netflix about not just season 2. We've talked on News and Reviews about season 2 not being officially happening, but obviously it would be stupid for Netflix not to do it. One of the biggest hits of the year. And really the biggest hit I think they've ever had. We've talked about that in like the ratings and stuff. It beat Bridgerton. It beat all their other things. So worldwide, it was their most watched show ever. But he's not only talking about a season 2 with Netflix, but they're in talks for a season 3 already. So we may get a 2-season renewal for Squid Game, which would be very cool. Definitely into seeing that. More death to talk about. John Madden passed away in the last week at age 85. And of course, we don't talk sports on this show. I don't know anything about sports really. But one of my favorite shows ever, Cheers. I did not realize that John Madden was originally offered the role of Coach Ernie Pantuso, which was played by Nicholas Colostano. And he passed away after season 3, I think it was. And that's how we got Woody Harrelson. Woody came on the scene from that. So the truth is, if John Madden had taken that role, we may not know Woody Harrelson. Is the weird sort of roundabout way of things. Because, of course, John Madden is still, not alive anymore, but he was alive for the whole run of Cheers. So they wouldn't have had to replace him, I guess. And who knows how he would have done, on the role. And the 80s really was that time of like, let's give all the sports figures their own shows. Bob Uecker was on Mr. Belvedere. Remember that? He played a pretty prominent role. He was not Mr. Belvedere, but he was like the father of the family. He decided to turn it down because he decided that if it failed, he would feel partially responsible. And if it succeeded, which of course it did, he would have to then feel like, okay, well, do I have to hang up my career as a sportscaster now because I'm on this hit show? So he decided just to avoid it altogether. Would have been a different show, I think, slightly. But certainly the Woody Harrelson thing is the first thing I thought of, is that maybe we would not know Woody Harrelson today if it was not for that. All right, Anderson Cooper is hosting 2 shows on the upcoming CNN Plus, another streaming service. I'm not going to get it. I can't keep up with all of them. I haven't gotten Discovery Plus and CNN Plus. I'm not that interested in. But Anderson Cooper, I do like. He's doing a parenting show called Parental Guidance. He has a 1-year-old, I guess, now. And then he's doing a continuation of this show called Full Circle, which first aired on Facebook in 2018. And ran for a couple of years there, and then went to CNN proper, and I guess now they're going to sort of revive it for, this new CNN Plus. I don't know what exactly the theme of that is, but his regular show is Anderson Cooper 360. What is a Full Circle but 360 degrees? So obviously it's sort of a take off that, I guess. All right, so we're going to talk shortly in the reviews about 1883, which is this Yellowstone prequel. Yellowstone just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And once again, an episode of the show has broken records. It has amassed 10.3 million viewers for the season finale the other night. That includes a simulcast on CMT. But 9.34 of those million watched it on Paramount Network, which is an all-time high for the series and an all-time high for Paramount Network, which topped the 8.12 million that watched the season premiere. So season finale skipped up even a million and a half past that. And it's so interesting because Yellowstone is now the final scripted original series on Paramount. Viacom CBS has shifted all of its focus away from the Paramount Network and putting them on Paramount Plus, which is where you can find 1883. And I think there's 2 other sequels or spinoffs, I should say, in the works from Yellowstone that are going to be on Paramount Plus. So a lot of love there. But yeah, it's interesting that they only have one show left on that channel of scripted original content, and it's the biggest thing, not just on their channel, but pretty much in all of TV. I mean, Yellowstone really is one of the most watched shows overall on all of TV. So very interesting there. All right, Seth Meyers and James Corden have both tested positive for COVID within the last couple of days here, and will be sort of shutting down the proceedings, airing reruns. Seth Meyers said come Monday he may air some new stuff from his house in quarantine. No word on what Corden is doing yet. That just came down a couple of hours ago. And I didn't hear about this, but Jimmy Fallon had it over the holiday break, so he was actually back to work for all of the regularly scheduled live episodes. But when he got it over Christmas break, they were already in reruns. So yeah, it's sweeping through late night, sweeping through everything. It's interesting that I have not heard about more shows being shut down. There's a bunch of the talk show hosts and that kind of thing, but scripted filmed shows and Hollywood movies, I have not really heard in the last few months about them being shut down. I know that was a big thing, obviously, like a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago now. But yeah, we don't hear a lot about that. So, well wishes to them. Hopefully, they get better. But yeah, COVID is definitely here to stay, everybody. It's sweeping through. All right, a couple of reboots and spinoffs to talk about before we get into the reviews. HBO in the very early stages of developing a follow-up to 6 Feet Under, which aired from 2001 to 2005, widely regarded as one of the top dramas of the 2000s. It gets spoken up there a lot of times with, maybe not quite up there with The Sopranos, but certainly with some of the biggies. People love that 6 Feet Under, and they don't really have an idea of what it will be yet. No writer is attached yet, and it's unclear whether it will be a direct sequel, a remake, a prequel, something else. They don't know, but they're definitely, they want to be in the 6 Feet Under business. And Michael C. Hall played one of the brothers on that show, and of course he's now back doing the new Dexter reboot. So if it is some sort of sequel, I don't know if he'd be able to do both or not. I guess nowadays people can, because cable seasons are only 10 episodes or so. And then I thought this was interesting. Wilmer Valderrama, who played Fez on that 70s show, he is set to star in a new live-action Zorro television series in development for Disney Television. And what that means is they're just going to be producing it, but they have not announced an outlet of where this will run. So I don't know if it will be on Disney Plus. I don't know if it will be on regular television, ABC maybe, which is owned by Disney. Could be a Hulu original. My buddy Tim and I are going through all of the old Disney movies, and one of them was a repackaged 4 episodes or something, or 6 episodes of the old Zorro show. And they did 2 movies actually, but only one of them is available on Disney Plus. So we did that one. But they've tried to do Zorro several different times. Of course, we all know they've done some movies. NBC had the most recent television attempt. It was going to be a female version of Zorro, and Sofia Vergara was going to produce, but for whatever reason, that got scrapped years ago and is not happening. But it's interesting. I didn't realize that Wilmer Valderrama was so entrenched in the Disney machine. He had recent voice roles in both Encanto and last year's Onward. So he definitely is part of the mouse family over there. And I like Zorro. I think it's always been a fun sort of, family-friendly action series. Maybe a little bit sexed up, a little bit violence for the little kiddos, but it's always been pretty family-friendly with the Disney branding. So, all right, let's move into the reviews. We've got 5 to talk about, and these, like I said, will be the last of the new 2021 shows. We are going to do a best and worst of 2021 in a couple of days. And then a few days after that, we're going to start fresh with the new 2022 shows. A lot have already premiered, so we'll talk about those. But right now, let's talk about 1883. This is the Yellowstone prequel. It is on Paramount Plus, like I mentioned. And I think, are all the episodes up? No, right? Yes. Okay, so they're going to do week by week, like a lot of these shows. And in fact, they skipped this week, I guess, because of New Year's. But they premiered 2 on December 19th, 1 more the day after Christmas, then a week off, and then January 9th will be the next episode. But this is, created by Taylor Sheridan of Yellowstone. He really is starting to create an empire here, not just by his own name, but just in the Yellowstone universe, I guess. And so this takes place, over 100 years from Yellowstone. I've never actually seen Yellowstone, so I didn't know that was sort of a present day thing. It's with Kevin Costner, so I kind of figured, it's like, it's old timey stuff like Dances with Wolves or some of his older things. But apparently it must be present day, because in this series you have Tim McGraw as James Dutton, who is the great grandfather of the Costner character, John Dutton. And I don't know much about Yellowstone. Like I said, I've never seen it, but I do know sort of the lineage a little bit. My brother and sister-in-law watch it, so I know a little bit about it. But what's interesting is I really don't think you need to know anything about Yellowstone going into this. I think you'll probably catch some Easter eggs that maybe I missed, but because it's a prequel series, because we're laying the foundation of essentially how the Dutton family went on their original journey from Texas all the way up to Montana, where they have now been for generations living in Yellowstone. But this follows all of John's ancestors. So you've got Tim McGraw there, and Tim's real life wife, Faith Hill, playing the wife here, Margaret Dutton. And I would say probably the star of the show, though, is Sam Elliott, who has nothing to do in lineage with the Dutton family, but he basically is heading up the Pinkerton Agency and leading the expedition to Montana. And so we deal with a lot of his character, especially in this first episode. His wife and daughter both die of smallpox right before the start of the expedition. So he basically, has nothing to lose. Let's make this journey here. So look, I didn't know quite what to think going into this because I have not seen Yellowstone, and I think you'll hear some echoes here when I talk about the Book of Boba Fett, because that's a direct sequel to The Mandalorian. I have not kept up with The Mandalorian. I'm very sort of iffy about Star Wars in general. They're all fine, but I'm not like a fanatic about it. So I don't follow, the history. But a lot of the same here. I mean, other than Kevin Costner and John Dutton, the character, I don't know much about Yellowstone, but you don't need it. This is a standalone show. It really is. And I think for a Western, Sam Elliott is the guy to get. He is that classic old school Western style. It's funny, he can do a lot of other things. He was in that Netflix series The Ranch, which was a comedy, and he was pretty funny in it. But here he is the Sam Elliott, sort of kicking ass and taking some names that we have come to know and love. And he is primed for these roles. I'm not positive that the show says a ton of new things, really. Which is why I'm not a huge Western fan in general. I think there's only so many ways that they tend to go. And we've actually seen a nice little resurgence of Western things in the last few years. The movie on Netflix, The Harder They Fall, which came out recently, was pretty solid. But here, it's a little bit par for the course. But I think what might put it above is that connection to Yellowstone that I personally did not feel. But this stands alone. I think people will watch it because of the Yellowstone connection. It's not something I think I will keep up with. Again, I'm just not a huge Western fan, but it did, capture my attention for the episodes that I saw. and the smallpox stuff have really kind of creeped me out. Like the makeup people with the lesions on the body, with doing a good job. My biggest complaint, I think, other than sort of all right, it's kind of standard stuff, is I don't think Faith Hill is a great actress. I like her music from back in the day. I don't think I've heard any of her songs in the last 18 years, but in the early 2000s, she had a string of hits, and I loved them all. Um, and she's a very lovely person, but I don't see great acting talent from her. Tim McGraw is good. We've seen him in a lot of things. He was the dad in The Blind Side and some other things. But yeah, I mean, Sam Elliott is the reason I think to come for this, if not for it being a Yellowstone thing. He's just great in this as always. I think this is a pretty solid Western series. I give 1883 a B plus. Up next, let's talk about the Book of Boba Fett. Now, so I already sort of tipped my hand a little bit. I have not followed up with The Mandalorian. I saw those first few episodes so I could review it for you, and it was enjoyable. But Star Wars is just not something that I always watch. I must see everything. I gravitate to. I'm not the guy for that. I think most of what I've seen is fairly enjoyable. And I do think it's helpful to know a little bit about the Boba Fett character. But, I mean, he is kind of one of those people that, all right, well, he's been around since the original movies. Well, he wasn't in the first one. He was in the holiday special, I guess. He premiered there, and then he was in, the next at least one or two. And then he popped up again in The Mandalorian. He's been around in many aspects of the Star Wars universe. But anyway, this was actually, he was supposed to have a movie when Star Wars was doing those spin-offs, and they had the solo story of Han Solo. But then that didn't do that well at the box office because people were kind of mad about the previous movie not being that good. I actually really like Solo. I thought that was a really quality movie. But then anyway, Disney Plus was shifting all their stuff to Disney Plus anyway, in terms of Star Wars and some Marvel stuff as well, obviously. So this sort of became a TV series instead of a film, and it makes sense because the character, apparently features pretty prominently in The Mandalorian. So we have here Temuera Morrison, who played Boba Fett in The Mandalorian, reprising his role here as the crime lord and bounty hunter, and son of Jango Fett, who I'm less familiar with Jango Fett. I know Boba Fett more. But we also have Ming-Na Wen reprising her role from The Mandalorian as Fennec Shand, who is an assassin and working with Boba Fett there. And basically the premise here is they're trying to make a name for themselves in the underworld of the galaxy, taking over the territory once controlled by Jabba the Hutt. And I, of course, know that guy. And his cousin Pizza the Hutt from Spaceballs. What a classic. And again, much like 1883, I don't think you have to know a ton about this character. They pretty much lay out. I mean, I do think it's helpful to know a little bit about the background from the movies, maybe. But if you've never seen an episode of The Mandalorian, I'm not sure why you're necessarily watching this, but whatever. If you are watching this without seeing Mandalorian, I think it's okay. I think you can enjoy this. There's some good action sequences. There's fun costumes as always with the Star Wars stuff. I do think that now I have only seen the first episode. I think maybe the second one dropped today, but I did not watch it. So I've only seen the first episode, so that's all I'm grading it on. I think it's a little derivative of some of the other Star Wars stuff I've seen. There's a limit, I think, to what you can do with these settings and these, okay, we're all bounty hunters and whatever. So I think it's a little limiting in that regard. But look, I think if you are a Star Wars fan, if you're a Mandalorian fan, I think this will hit that sweet spot for you. And if you're not, I'm not sure this is the one to start with, but I don't think you'll be bored. And I'm a Ming-Na fan from back in her 90s sitcom days and then on ER after that. And, of course, voicing Fa Mulan. So she's always a treat to watch on the screen. So she did not disappoint me here. But yeah, I do think it's a little repetitive, of some of the other things. But do Star Wars fans care? Probably not. So I will leave the legend of Boba Fett, or the Book of Boba Fett rather, with a B. At some point, maybe I'll catch up on the Mandalorian. I don't know. There's only so many hours in a day, and I'm trying to watch all these new movies and all the shows. I sort of have to stick with the ones that really speak to me, and Star Wars stuff is sort of take it or leave it. But I do have to admit, I like that Disney is sort of realizing, okay, look, our fans don't have time to watch every single thing we put out for the most part. Let's at least give background on some of these characters. Because some of the Marvel stuff, I don't think they do that with. I think some of like Loki, if you didn't know some stuff about Loki going in, I don't know. I feel like you would be kind of lost. They would get you up to speed after, an episode or two. You'd get to know the character, but it just is a lot of the stuff they're putting out. WandaVision, I think you'd be completely lost if you have no knowledge of that kind of stuff and then the MCU universe. But it's Star Wars. I think they're hitting on that same thing. They're like, okay, maybe people don't have time to watch everything. If they didn't see Mandalorian, let's at least give them like a primer in Boba Fett. I think they did that here, so I have to applaud that. All right, let's move on here. The next one we're going to talk about is With Love. This is on Amazon Prime, and there's a few notable people in here that I did not really know by name, but I certainly knew them to see them, including Vincent Rodriguez III, who was on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, Mark in Delicato, I want to say, or in Delicato, who I have not seen in a long time, but he was the little kid. He was like 12 or 13 years old in Ugly Betty, which I'm watching really for the first time. So I've been seeing him as a kid lately, but he's all grown up here, and we have Constance Marie from the George Lopez Show, Todd Grinnell, who played on the most recent version of One Day at a Time. So there's a few people that we recognize here, but essentially this is it's actually Christmas related. I didn't realize this, or maybe I would have watched it for the last episode I did of News and Reviews, but it did premiere December 17th, and essentially it is about people coming home for the holidays and sort of giving away their news about their sexuality and who they're dating, and there's a lot of it's very, I don't want to say it's sexed up because it's not really, but there is a lot of talk about sexuality and what that means to people and that kind of thing, because they're explaining it sort of to their elder grandparents. That's not all that it's about, but that's a lot of the first episode was about that, to be honest. But it's about romance, and it's about who's dating who and all these hot people getting together and whatever. It's billed as a comedy drama, and I think there's only 6 episodes maybe, and they're all up right now, so you could binge this if you want to. There's only 5 episodes, and they're an hour long each, so 45, 50 minutes each. So if you have about 4 hours to kill, you could watch this whole thing if you wanted to. I'm not positive I would recommend that. I had thought about doing that because I did have a little extra time, and I was like, after the second episode, I was like, I don't necessarily care what happens here, which is not a good sign, right? But I think for a Christmas sort of rom-com type thing, you could certainly do worse as a series, but it reminded me of how much I loved that Dash and Lily show that Netflix did. I think it was Christmas of 2019 at this point. Maybe it was 2020. I don't think so, though. I think it was 2019. But anyway, that sort of was like a mini series that I did watch all of before I reviewed it. And then they were maybe going to make like a second installment of it, or a second quote unquote season, but then they never did. I thought that was a lot more authentic than this. This seemed very sort of forced, and I liked some of the conversations that people were having. But I don't know. It seemed to me like the type of show that if you really are on sort of the outskirts of what some of the current sexual terms are, what bisexuality is and what pansexuality, like if you don't really understand those, like I pictured my grandparents watching this to like gain the knowledge of like what these terms mean and that kind of thing, because especially in that first episode, because as the actors are sort of expressing themselves to their own parents, and other relatives, it sort of felt like they were teaching us, about it. And look, we all learned that stuff years ago. So that did not really interest me. And some of the romances are okay, but for the most part, these are not characters I wanted to stick with. I mean, I only had 3 episodes left, and I was like, I got other things to watch. Like, I'm not going to worry about it. So I never, that's never a good sign. I feel like, usually I'll watch 2 episodes because that's how much time I have. If we're doing like six new shows in a week and I'm watching 2 of each one, that's, 10 to 12 hours sometimes. But usually if I want to watch more, that's a good sign. And if I have the time and I don't watch more, clearly, it did not grab my interest. So I'm going to leave With Love with a C. Pretty middling affair for me. All right, next is Anxious People. This is on Netflix, and this was not on my radar at all, but it came up just today in like recommended, things you might enjoy on my Netflix. And I'd never heard of it, but it said 2021, and I'm like, okay, well, when did this come out? Like, I didn't know it. And it came out literally like the last week of the year. And the reason it's probably not on my radar is because it is from Sweden, and I really only do the foreign language stuff if it, blows up really big, because, there's just so much of it, it's hard to know what to wade through. But, the premise sounded vaguely interesting, and it was recommended for me, so I'm like, whatever. I was only doing 4 shows originally on this week's episode, so why not tackle a 5th? And it's quick. There's only 6 episodes. They're all 23 minutes apiece, so I thought maybe here's another one I could watch all of. But that did not happen, and you'll find out why. But the basic premise is that a bank robber holds up an open house that people are having, and then disappears, and then a father and son team of cops investigate, and they're basically these bumbling idiot cops. And I don't know anybody in this show. It's all Swedish people that maybe are big over there. I don't know, but I watched this with the dub because that's how my Netflix defaults, and I just didn't feel like changing it. So take that for what it's worth. But I did not find this very good. There's a way to do sort of the bumbling cop routine. And just this year, we've had a couple of shows do that. Paranormal, or what was it called? Wellington Paranormal, which is sort of a spin-off of What We Do in the Shadows. I found that to be a little bit more enjoyable than this. And one of my all-time favorite shows under the radar is called Sledgehammer, and that's about, this bumbling cop. I think you could certainly do the bumbling cop bit well. Simpsons, of course, Chief Wiggum. But this doesn't really say anything new, nor is it funny enough to garner, continuing with. And none of the dramatic parts really take either. Now, I will admit that the central mystery is intriguing, and the premise is intriguing enough. But that's where it sort of stops. Like, this show didn't really quite know what direction it wanted to go in, what it wanted to say. Is it Brooklyn Nine-Nine? Like, there's a great send-up of police, right? Funny stuff, Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Like, but they couldn't decide here if they wanted to go sort of in that direction or make it more about, okay, well, somebody did, get murdered, and somebody did get robbed, and, let's explore those. Those are serious issues. And so they go for the serious on that. So I don't know. Maybe in Sweden, these types of shows are all the rage, but to me, it just seemed very, very disjointed, all over the place, did not have a clear vision at all. This was just kind of a jumbled mess. So I don't think there's much more to say than that. Let's move on. Anxious People for me gets a D plus. All right, so I've been trying to keep these under 40 minutes, unless we're doing a full, 6 review slate, and we don't have that this week. So let's try and keep it under 40 here. Chaplewaite is our final one of the year. I've been talking about this show for months because it originally premiered in September. Usually there's a few shows at the end of the year that I missed throughout the course of the year, so I try and catch up before I do my year-end wrap-up, and I don't have epics. And this is what it's on. But Adrian Brody's in it. It's from a Stephen King story, so I was like, okay, I'm intrigued about this. So I dragged my feet. I finally got the 7-day trial of Epic so I could watch this for you. And it's okay, but I'm a little disappointed, to be honest. I don't think I'll keep up with it. But this is based, I don't know if is it a Stephen King book or a short story? He does so many short stories. It is from the short story Jerusalem's Lot. I wonder if that's like Salem's Lot. I'm not, I watch the movies, but I don't really read Stephen King's books. But Jerusalem's Lot certainly seems like a Salem's Lot type of thing. But in any event, the premise is essentially that Adrian Brody plays this captain of a whaler ship, and his wife dies tragically aboard the ship. So he and his children return to this very small town of Preacher's Corners, of course in Maine, because it's Stephen King, where a dark family history haunts them. And in the very first scene, we see a younger version of Captain Adrian Brody witnessing his parents fighting to the point of almost murdering each other. He is witnessing all of this and almost gets murdered himself. And so an intense opener. My biggest issue with this is I do not think that it needed to be stretched out to the 10-episode treatment. I think, there's a lot to be said for sort of, shorter but sweet. It's something I talk about all the time. I haven't really railed on it for a while, so I guess since it's the end of the year, I can talk a little bit about how this is, something that does frustrate me. We're in this era now with the streamers of everybody wanting an 8 or 10 episode miniseries. It's okay to do a 3 or 4 part miniseries. That is what we used to get on television when I was growing up. A miniseries, unless it was like Roots or something where it was like 8 chapters, would go, for 2 hours one night, and then, maybe it would take a night off, and then on the next night they would do another 2 hours, and that's your show. It's 4 hours. And I think a lot of people are getting a little too big for their britches with the productions, and they're saying, oh, this needs to be an 8-episode story, 10 hours. No, it doesn't. Two of Stephen King's biggest, longest books, The Stand and It, were both made into 4-hour miniseries back in the day. And that was with commercials, so probably 3 hours when it comes down to it. So this is just too slow moving. I watched the first 2 episodes of this, and it was okay. Adrian Brody is real good in the role. Was there anybody else? I feel like there was maybe somebody else I knew from this. Oh, yes, of course, Emily Hampshire from Schitt's Creek. She plays Rebecca Morgan, this sort of caretaker that holds some of the secrets of the family history and the history of the house. She was fine. She didn't really have much to do in the first couple episodes. Maybe she gets more. She's second build, so I assume she factors in, heavier a little bit later. But this one, it just didn't grab me. It's too slow paced. They needed to probably cut this down. I think based on the first 2 episodes, I would say probably 6 episodes would be good. Especially, it's based on a short story. I mean, come on. The Shawshank Redemption was based on a short story, and that's a 2-hour, maybe 20-minute movie. One of the great movies of all time. We all know that. So to make this into a 10-hour, big epic, it's just unnecessary. So I will leave Chaplewaite with a C+. Very underwhelming. I was really looking forward to it since I've been talking about it so much over the last couple months. But, all right, so that's going to wrap it. Like I said, in a few days, I will have my best and worst of 2021. I am compiling that as we speak. I saw 278, I think it was, new shows this year. That doesn't even include the seasons of old shows I've been watching. This Is Us and The Rookie and The Connors and all that kind of stuff. Doesn't include that. Just brand new shows that I have reviewed for you guys over the course of 2021. 278 of them. So I will compile the best and the worst of those. And then a few days after that, we're going to tackle all the new network shows that have premiered. American Auto, I think it's called, Grand Crew, Abbott Elementary, Good Sam on CBS. So a lot of that stuff will be coming up. And then we'll just get into all the 2022 stuff. We will keep plugging along every week with the news and reviews. So thank you for watching, and we'll see everybody next time. Bye.